Excuse me, Game Master. Banish him from our realm. Doc Elf.
So I've been told that MMO tribalism's a bitch. So I'm wearing a gas mask in case it gets toxic up in here.
And although my opinions and statements will be seen as toxic, because I'm not about to walk on eggshells out here, just know that I could have made this video 6 years ago, and the only difference is it would have been shorter. The only reason I'm doing it now is because I just couldn't continue to mislead my 5 viewers into thinking I love having shit in my mouth. So now that you understand what I gotta do, let me give you a preview of what's on the menu. Bars. Take a look at this burger. This burger will represent my beef with Guild Wars 2. But in order for you to understand my beef, I gotta give you the fries, the medium-sized Coke with ice, and 2 sweet and sour sauces because I like to use some for the burger too. The last thing I should address before going into this is if you're a B-tier gamer, no disrespect, you probably won't understand or share my same frustrations. And I'm not trying to create change with this video or convert people to my side. This is very much my personal perspective, and I just wanted to share how I got here and how things got to this point. I've been playing MMOs since 2005, starting with RuneScape, introducing me to the genre. Something about creating my own character and immersing myself in this shared world with the ability to interact with other players soon had me addicted to the genre. I bounced around over the years trying out all the different WoW copies at the time, which is funny because in hindsight, a lot of these games had their fair share of unique systems and elements about them that I wish some of these newer games had. Which I guess is a good time to say, I enjoy PvP in MMORPGs. Unless it's pay to win. But to me, if the game has enjoyable combat, then I'm probably going to find fighting other players more fun than fighting scripted AI or a rabbit. But ultimately, from game to game, I could land anywhere on the spectrum based on how good or bad the PvE content is in the game. So stop labeling me, you all know my story. Which brings me to Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 came out at a time where I was actually 1 foot out the door of the MMORPG genre. The game that I was playing at the time released an expansion update that power crept the hell out of a new race, in addition to adding some new shiny endgame pay-to-win gear. A lot of the PvP enjoying folks decided to move to private servers for the game, so that they could still have fun with the open world PvP and territory wars. Then a year later I catch a wind of this new MMORPG coming out called Guild Wars 2. A lot of people, not me, thought, this is it. This is the WoW killer. Look at these graphics. Oh my god, this is going to be a life-changing experience. I've never seen anything like this. But of course, because of how my last game went, I was unable to be fully hyped because I didn't know if I wanted to go through all this grind again in this new game. But ultimately, I decided to give it a try because the best time to get into an MMORPG is when everyone is new. As soon as people start to feel they're above the content and they're starting to speedrun and optimize, the magic's over. But then out of left field, to my surprise, I hear that the PvP in the game is equalized gear so everyone will be on the same playing field with no pay to win. Which around this point in time, something like this was pretty much unheard of. So needless to say, I was now hyped at the idea that I didn't have to sacrifice more of my life expectancy before being allowed to have fun. Oh my god, Plague, why don't you just play a PvP game like Call of Duty or Street Fighter? I do. You know my tier. But I don't get to create my own character in those games, so it's different. This is me out there. That's Ryu. Shut up. Hype levels rise as we receive more intel and progress one step closer to stepping foot into Tyria. Me and the boys ready to game till our last breath. We got about 120 days to enjoy this game because the Mayan calendar finishes this year and the earth is gonna explode or something. And this is where it gets messy because I don't know whose fault this was or if there was some kind of miscommunication, but somehow by the time the game launched, everybody's idea of what this game was supposed to be was like different to the next guys. On one side, you had these esports enthusiasts here for the PvP and hyped for the history that was about to be made because just like League of Legends, this is gonna be the next esport. Apparently the devs had been advertising or talking about having a whole ass league of esports, PvP with teams and all that. So that, I guess, attracted a crowd of pure hardcore PvP enthusiasts. Then on the other side, you had your PvEers talking about, wow, this is the greatest MMORPG ever. I no longer have to stack quests in my quest log. I just visit the heart at the location in this map and the quest will activate in real time. Then after that, I guess they caught wind of the esports gig in motion because, wow, why are they not playing Call of Duty? Anet is literally wasting money on esports when they could be spending it on my living world content. And then you got this third area of the game, which is like some weird compromise of having open world PvP but not having open world PvP because it takes place in an instance, but gear does matter out here in this mode. And it's basically a 3-way ongoing war between a few servers. Now this here, in my opinion, is the source of what hurt Guild Wars 2 almost more than anything else. The 3 game mode structure in itself is actually not a bad idea, but it could have been executed much better and in a way that didn't divide the community straight out the gate. Because the original idea, from what I remember, was basically, this is an MMORPG that features 3 game modes, PvE, PvP, and World vs. World. You can play any one of these solely and obtain all the same endgame gear without ever having to play the other modes. Now this sounds good on paper, until you realize the pie actually looks something like this. Because the game modes aren't treated anywhere near equally. In 10 years of this game's existence, PvP in World vs. World hasn't seen any kind of meaningful development in more than half of those years, I want to say. With probably like 2015 being the last time it seemed like Anet cared, at least to a decent degree. But it would be around 2017 when the whole esports gig came to an official end, with ESL tweeting out that they're basically discontinuing their partnership with Guild Wars 2. And of course with this came the speculation that PvP is going to die as people would begin to lose interest and quit the game. I'm not sure if any specific reason was ever given as to why they were dropped by ESL, but the theory on the street was that the gameplay meta at the time was a very boring and slow-paced experience to play and watch, which I guess now is the perfect time for me to quickly explain to outsiders what PvP is in Guild Wars 2. So PvP in this game is a 5 vs 5 conquest match where the object is to basically run to any of the 3 circles on the map and stand in it until it fully turns to your team's color, in which then your team will start generating points every second until first to 500 points wins. If you run into an opposite player, you have to fight over the point while trying to keep them off of the point, or by killing them, otherwise they can stall you from capturing it by standing inside of it at the same time, or capturing it for themselves if they're standing in it and you aren't. But that's the basics. Now, it would be unfair to blame ESL for the death of PvP because the truth is esports isn't needed to have a good PvP experience. But it seems like at no point did the devs ever consider that maybe it would have been a good idea to have something for the players that enjoy PvP, who don't want to play musical chairs on the side. What kind of a weird game mode is this to have as your only game mode? So in my opinion, there's only 2 possible parties at fault here. One being Anet and how they dealt with this fact, or didn't deal with the fact for years, which I'll get into. And 2 being the esporters of the community, possibly gaslighting them into further not doing anything. On top of this, since the beginning, the new player PvP experience has been trashed. But somehow, 10 years later, it's even worse than when I was starting. Everything from there not being a good in-game tutorial on how to play Conquest, to also considering a new player most likely won't have a build set up on their character suitable for the game mode, to then throwing them into a game of 5 vs 5 with randoms who will get mad at them for doing something incorrect and causing them to lose. This is already enough to shy most players away from PvP to begin with. Let me give you an example. I liked Apex Legends, but I didn't keep playing after my friends quit because it's only 3 vs 3 and I'm not good at shooters. So I'm not comfortable playing, knowing that I'm the reason the team is losing and being dragged down. So out of respect, I just let the shooter kids have their fun because there is no avenue for me to learn without it being at the expense of dragging down other players. 1 vs 1 games though, or free-for-all? Beat me all you want right now, and enjoy it while it lasts because I'll be coming for that ass when you see me again in 2 months, let me tell you something. I'm just going to dump out the rest of these fries real quick so we can finally get to the Mac. So basically I had this whole point on how back in the day, the PvP leveling grind actually gave you a sense of feeling or progression before they decided to casualize the hell out of it and basically give everyone free level 80 rank, because I guess people were complaining that it was too hard. The original system did get extremely hard, but all they did is change it from one extreme to the other. Like I'm sitting here looking at a ridiculous number like level 500 plus on a secondary account because it's so easy to level that I don't even notice them anymore. It's just not the best move in my opinion in a game that already suffers from incentive problems and rewards. So like I was saying, since the beginning of this game, people have been asking for other game modes in PvP because they don't like Conquest. To the point where Anet, through all their bias towards electronic sports, actually attempted to make some. But it's pretty evident that during this, they allowed themselves to get gaslit by the conks of the community to further confirm their bias. Conk, a Guild Wars 2 player in the PvP space who was actively against the implementation or support of other PvP game modes beyond Conquest, into basically sabotaging the new mode in some way to make sure it would always take a backseat to Conquest. Like it literally felt equivalent of being like lost in a desert, but then a rescue team finds you and one of the guys says, hey, you want some water? And then as soon as you go to drink it, he goes, but I shat in it. And it was always in some new way that they screw you. And then there's the community and the fact that every time in history someone's ever pitched an idea for a new game mode or requests one, a conk will just manifest themselves in the forums or on Reddit trying to shut it down, talking shit about how the game isn't balanced around 1 vs 1. Or deathmatch? It would get boring after a while. And then you gotta listen to them try and sell you Conquest. Oh my god, it's so much more strategic. Like, if I get into a bad matchup somewhere on the map, I can just run away and be somewhere else. Oh my god, it's so amazing. They should add this to Call of Duty and Street Fighter. Courtyard comes out. Gaslit to Hot Joined and Abandoned. Stronghold comes out. It's actually pretty good, but I guess they decided it's not worth the final tweaks, so they leave it in unranked only. Esports dies. 2 vs 2 comes out like 3 years later. But hey, with esports dead, I guess there's no reason for them to conk anymore, right? Wrong. They stay conking. 2 vs 2 comes out, and it's only available to play for 2 weeks every 2 months. Now the excuse is that the population's too low. We don't want to split the community. Now, I've already said this before, so I'm just gonna let my other self say it. New game modes attract new people. There are people that don't like Conquest, so they don't do Conquest. And if Conquest is the only game mode, then they're not gonna do PvP at all, are they? When I was looking at the release dates for some of these modes, I suddenly remembered Anet had done a stream years ago. I think it might have been around the first expansion. And I remember they at some point discussed a new PvP map they were working on. I believe it was like a 15 versus 15. And I'm gonna say I'm probably remembering this next detail wrong because thinking back on it, it just seems too crazy for me to want to believe. But my mind recalls something along the lines of them showing a preview of the map and them saying the game mode was basically done but never made it because they didn't know what to do with the UI when it came to like health bars or something. I'm hoping I'm remembering that wrong. So I went back digging, trying to find it, and I couldn't remember what stream it was from. But while I was digging, I found another stream instead where they were showing like 3 or 4 other maps of different game modes that didn't make it in. But of course the new Conquest map amongst them did make it in. But anyways, look at this.
So like I said, while we are working on these maps, we are making a ton of other prototypes to mess around with. So this was another early Asura themed one that we were working on. We generally try to do a new theme for each map so there's not a lot of overlap.
Yep.
Another one here is we're going with a ruins with Sylvari kind of theme going on there, kind of some castle ruins.
Yeah, this one had some like traps. This was like a swinging log traps. There's a pressure plate and stuff that had some kind of prisoner's dilemma kind of choices that you were making. Like, do I want to go in there and get the thing, or do I want to like let someone else go in there and then step on the platform and crush them?
We were working on a char arena. And again, these are all prototypes that ultimately we weren't happy enough to take all the way through. We might revisit these maps at a future date, but these are maps that didn't quite make it in the game.
Yeah.
As a special treat, you want to show them some of the stuff we're working on now? All right.
Sure, why not?
All right.
All right.
We're working on new game modes right now.
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the things is, for our game, Conquest and cap points, like they work really well. They drive people to locations, but they also split people, so we don't get we don't force these big 5v5 fights. But there is a point of like diminishing returns to adding the same maps to the same game mode. And that's kind of a point that we have almost certainly reached. And so we are working on this. So this is a prototype. Darren talked about gray box. You can see these are definitely gray box props. I think the internal name for this map is Stronghold.
No, this is Concave.
Oh, sorry, this is Concave. Sorry. Yeah, we have a bunch of new ones. These maps are not going to be driven by cap points. They're not going to be 3 cap points and you hold them and score takes up. They're definitely going to be different. This one is, what is this again?
This is Encampment?
Oh, this is Encampment, yes. So yeah, we're just going to, spoil them sort of by giving you names. This is really fancy camp.
Yes.
Here. Flanking gameplay as well, where players are going to spread out and then take back paths and cut back and forth. That's the kind of gameplay we really like, so this is Arena.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that could possibly be used for, but the internal name is Arena.
This is the Stronghold map.
Yeah, this is Stronghold. Spoiler, we played this the other day, so these things are definitely starting to get some scripting in them. A lot of fun the first playthrough. I think there's a second one coming up maybe
this
in
afternoon.
2 hours or so. Sorry, y'all, but as soon as it's awesome, we will kind of get some of these out there because there's definitely a lot of potential here. So
final one, we have one called Castle.
Oh, yeah, Castle. Yeah, and
leave it at that.
Yeah, should we leave it there?
Leave it at that.
There's also another moment in history I remember that contributes to my overall sourness to this whole situation. So at this point in time, it's already well known that Anet is like a D tier when it comes to communication. Like if Anet has 2 problems, it's been communication and them, they just take too long to do too little for PvP. But speaking of both of these things, there was a post on the forum some years back that I think is now deleted. I couldn't find it when I last looked, but maybe it's still there. I don't know. Anyway, from what I remember, it was somewhat of like a to-do list for PvP and all the things that they're working on or trying to get out. And there was a decent amount of things on that list, from the release of Swiss-style automated tournaments that we now have, all the way to something less like finally fixing that annoying, terribly designed giant Q-pop map selection UI and getting it out of our face, which according to them could not be fixed before the automated tournaments came out. I don't know what that meant, like that makes it sound like it's technically not possible. But anyways, there were more things on that list, but it was obvious that the main thing that they were concerned about was the automated tournaments, based on how they were responding to like some of the back and forth and whatever. Fast forward, automated tournaments release, UI doesn't get fixed, forum post now gone. Now, I don't want to say they deleted it, but I have a theory. So at this point, we're past esports, and it probably has no one left in the company that has any real PvP vision for the future, but that's not something they're going to say out loud. So theory is, the only reason they pushed to at least finish the automated tournaments is so that once it's out, PvP can run itself without them basically having to care ever again. You know, just let the tryhards go play. They got their tournaments. Go play in a room, Billy. PvE and I are talking about dragons. But that's just my theory. Bottom line is this. I believe if the pie wasn't so skewed from the beginning for so long, maybe we would have had a better game today in higher numbers. With more suitable PvP game modes, even just a polished stronghold would have gone a long way to lead to a better crossover in this pie between PvP, World vs. World, and PvE. Because right now PvP is the third wheel. I know World vs. World thinks they're the third wheel, but there's a lot more people I know that will play World vs. World and PvE rather than PvE and PvP. But Stronghold PvP is just World vs. World light without the filler, and because it's not a million versus a million, you get better combat interactive gameplay instead of the abstract art of environmental waste that is Zerg combat. We could have had a real circle going here. But instead we gotta watch these guys, who have better links by the way, have the same discussion for years about how can we possibly get more people into PvP.
Guys, how have we not talked about how do we get people into PvP?
Automated tournaments could help.
Yeah, no, I think so, yeah. But what else? What else can we do?
My solution would be automated tournaments, more frequent balance patches, separated for PvP, and better rewards during the seasons. And I think at least once a year, you need to have a unique skin that's available for players to work on. I know that all of those things sound like just carrots. You'll just get people coming in just to play, but it will build up at least the lower levels of the population. It's not going to help Syndroneer, unfortunately.
What if there was automated tournaments? Let's say the monthly tournaments would eventually establish team ranks in some way.
Leaderboards.
But on top of that, those teams would be the ones invited to pro tournaments.
Oh shit, ladder-based tournament. Ladder-based pro league. God damn, that would actually be spicy.
None of those things, aside from maybe the skins, will get new people into PvP. At most, it just sustains the people that were already interested in the first place, to stop them from leaving so quickly.
What is the thing that people have been asking for since the start of Guild Wars, when it comes to like gameplay in Guild Wars? Everyone, 99% of the people, not including me, like I've loved Guild Wars, the gameplay, it works and all that stuff. But it's what Teapot touched about earlier. People don't want Conquest. Like, the main database of Guild Wars. Okay.
Conquest is good. They just don't know what they want.
Yes, I know that you want Conquest. I know that. But if you want excitement in the game, if you want people to get excited and want to play it, you don't put a stupid skin in Conquest and then leave it dead for another 6 months. If you want a legitimate change, right, in the game, to the point where it could actually do better than what it is now, then it is a new game mode. And you put some form of queue in there. And that would be a more popular queue instantly than Conquest. Instantly. And you would...
That's never happened before, right?
Has there ever been a queue for a normal game mode that's not garbage? Yeah, but Stronghold was complete garbage.
Stronghold can easily be fixed in like 2 tweaks. I've made a video on this already, but it's just something that they're probably not going to do.
No, yeah, but that's
and that's
fair,
what I'm saying. Conquest isn't complete garbage because it's simple.
No, it's not. Simple would imply that new players would be able to jump into the game mode and have an understanding of how to play with little to no direction, which is not the case.
But it also has the potential for a lot of complexity. Like, why would you want something else?
You want that. I get that. But people want something new. Stronghold.
Right, but you're telling me like people who want classic WoW are the same people who want like old GVGs in Guild Wars too. Like, they think they want it, but they don't.
Nobody asked for Stronghold, ever. What Stronghold was obviously just a way for Guild Wars to try to capitalize on the MOBA market. Like, let's not pretend that it was anything else.
It was basically their interpretation of old GVG.
And GVG, yeah, is what they were trying to go for. Like a bit of kind of Fort Aspen with
a mix of the both, right? But it wasn't a legitimate game mode attempt. Like, there's differences. If there's a way to get people excited, okay, Teapot, how would you make anyone care about Guild Wars outside of, like, let's say just a 3v3 deathmatch mode, right? That's my suggestion. What's your suggestion in making Guild Wars better?
Oh,
assuming that
I don't disagree at all, but I don't disagree that they weren't trying with Stronghold. I think they did want to make it work, but it flopped horribly.
What can we possibly do about this? Like, what could Anet do? What can we as the community do here? See, Grouch in the chat, giving us the insight, giving us the information. I find myself a little bit confused. When I look at PvP, I look at an excellent game mode that's really strategic, skill-based, stays fresh. I see, honestly, good game flow, you know, a few outliers and balance, obviously, here and there, you know, not bad. Excellent systems, tournaments, the most prestigious reward in the game by far, not even close. With the monthlies, the dailies are every 3 hours, bunch of gold in there as well. Ranked, it's just a good ranked system. It works, right? You've got rating, you've got badges, you've got titles, all this kind of good stuff. But yet, I don't feel like PvP is doing super well. Why is it that PvP isn't able to seemingly grow or get more of a foothold in the community when everything about it seems really, really good, and certainly, if not, if not good already, improving and getting a lot better. What's going on there?
Conquest is going on there. What do you mean? The only time Conquest is good is when you get to play it properly. Full coordinated, pre-made 5-man teams on both sides in comms. But as it stands currently, outside of ATs, you're forced to play with randoms. The same randoms who at any moment can just decide to throw a game and AFK if they get mad, and then you get punished. And then you want to put a leaderboard on that and expect people to value it? And if there's no static teams, then it all means nothing. So I guess the real question we should be asking is, why aren't new players joining PvP in 2023 post-esports era, creating their own static teams and jumping straight into automated tournaments before they know how to play the game? No matter how you spin it, the problem is Conquest. If you cannot allow players to play the game properly in 5s for whatever the reason is, population, whatever, then instead of forcing them to play the game incorrectly, which is a much worse experience, then just make a suitable game mode that requires the 1 or 2 players that you're pushing for the queues to begin with.
And something that Grouch brought up here, I think this comes up a lot actually, and I'd be curious, I think I kind of know what the answer is going to be here, but like, what happens if we actually just say, you know what, Conquest, no thanks, let's go play some deathmatch? Personally, I don't think that will be a very good idea at all, because I think 2v2 and 3v3 has the potential to get staler. I think you'd have to really change the way the game plays, like with a lot of the class balance and the way a lot of classes operate, in order to make the game 2v2 and 3v3, which I guess is possible. But personally, I really like Conquest. Okay, and maybe I'm saying that I'm biased, because I've played a lot of Conquest and so on. But I think it would really reduce the strategic depth of the game and just make Guild Wars 2 PvP a lot less interesting and a lot less special and defined compared to other PvP and other MMOs, for example. But I don't think removing Conquest is the way to go.
Let me ask you a question, T-Bot, because I thought about it. My initial reaction to it is like, well, Guild Wars 2 Conquest is a beautiful thing. People that have gone to appreciate it really know how fantastic it is for the game. The movement you can do it and all that stuff. But let's change the question a little bit. Let's say you have a pool of 100,000 players. We don't have 100,000 players in PvP now, Saj. But let's pretend we do. Now let's pretend that in one universe it's 2v2/3v3 competitive mode, and in the other universe you have the current system. Which do you think lends to more players staying?
2v2, 3v3. I mean,
yeah,
that's what I thought too, right?
Sure, yeah.
And there you have it. You don't need a new Conquest map. You don't need a balance patch every second to shake up the meta. You need new game modes. The answer has been new game modes since the beginning, but you would have needed just enough to cover for solo players, duo players, and team players while leaving the large scale to World vs. World, and then we could have adjusted from there. While this game is not for everyone, for other good reasons, it's been annoying to witness the thrown away potential that existed out of such a rare occurrence in something like equalized PvP. And we could have capitalized on these other two sides of the game a lot more and had a better game collectively. Because it's not like you sacrificed these two sides and ended up with some god tier PvE in the genre, because that's not even the case. You just ignored PvP in World vs. World for years, and your PvE still mid. I see people genuinely confused, saying things like, I just don't understand why Guild Wars 2 isn't as popular as it should be. It's way better than World of Warcraft. Everything you like about Guild Wars 2, a lot of other people won't like. On top of that, many people have already expressed that it's just a mess to look at, or just not entertaining to watch, which obviously doesn't help promotion, and probably explains why, instead of watching a Guild Wars 2 stream, you are instead in Asmongold's chat, begging him to play Guild Wars 2 so he can artificially boost the player base. I mean, you can continue to blame marketing like it's the only thing that went wrong, but we also now got to consider that this is a 10-year-old game, and not many people are exactly jumping to play a new old game. which is why for the better part of a decade, from 2012-14-ish onwards, the MMORPG drought probably had a lot of people stuck on the initial ship they chose, being kind of hard to switch to something new. But with 2 possible Titanics incoming, in a best case scenario, I'm interested to see what the MMO landscape looks like in 8 years from now. Because if there's one thing I learned from MMORPGs in all these years, it's that no one game hits a perfect 10 on all sides. But if we were able to Frankenstein all the best parts of each, we could have had this WoW killer by now. But that's all I gotta say. I'm out.
Yeah, I decided to play this. I also goes naughty because Guild Wars 2 sucks right now.